Hello anime fans, this is your friend Naruto Lore Vault. And we are back with a new fanfic. Today's fanfic is super exciting. Which is, what if Naruto died instead of Kurama? Part 2. Before I start, please do support for more amazing content and comments for next part, and if you enjoy this fanfic then, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more awesome stories like this. So without wasting any more time, let's jump straight into the fanfic. The world changed after Naruto's sacrifice, but the change was not immediate. At first, everyone simply felt an emptiness they could not define. It wasn't just the absence of a hero, it was as if the entire shinobi world had lost a source of warmth it never realized it depended on. When Naruto's chakra faded on that battlefield, what remained was silence, heavy, impossible to ignore, the kind that settles deep inside people's hearts. Kurama, now existing only as a sealed memory inside Naruto's lifeless form, left behind no flame, no roar, only the echo of a bond that ended far too soon. And the one who carried that grief most painfully was Sasuke. Sasuke did not weep immediately. Instead, he stared at Naruto's still body and felt a certain collapse happening inside him. It was not the sharp pain of loss, but a slow cracking, as if the foundations of everything he rebuilt had started to split apart. Naruto had forgiven him, fought him, saved him, again and again. And now, Naruto had died in his place, without asking for anything, without hesitation, without regret. Sasuke carried Naruto back to the hidden leaf himself. No one tried to take him. They silently stepped aside, watching Sasuke move through the ruins of the battlefield with the same expression he once had as a boy walking away from the Uchiha flames. But this time, he wasn't consumed by hatred. He was consumed by the bitter realization that Naruto had believed in him more than he had ever believed in himself. When the village received the news, there was no explosion of cries. Instead, people froze. Some fell to their knees. Some whispered his name like a prayer. Children who grew up hearing tales of his kindness couldn't understand how someone like him could simply disappear. The Hokage monument, illuminated by the morning sun, seemed incomplete, like one face was missing, one that had always deserved to be there. Kawaki, who had once viewed Naruto as the only stable point in his world, felt completely unanchored. He did not show anger, nor did he lash out. Instead, he went quiet, too quiet. Every instruction, every comforting word, every moment Naruto had spent guiding him now replayed like a broken loop. Kawaki promised himself he would live by those teachings, but promises made in grief rarely hold steady. Boruto changed in a different way. His grief was quieter but heavier. Naruto had been his anchor, his measure of strength, his moral compass. Without him, Boruto felt like he had lost not just a father but the future he thought they would build together. Instead of collapsing inward, Boruto forced himself to stand taller. Not out of confidence, but because he feared that if he allowed himself to bend, he would never straighten again. Hinata visited Naruto's resting place daily. She spoke very little, because she believed words no longer had the power to reach him. Instead, she simply sat beside the stone and placed her hand upon it, just as she once placed her hand over Naruto's heart. She remembered how warm he always felt, how bright his presence was. Now, she could only hold on to those memories. Days turned into weeks, and the world slowly began to shape itself around his absence. Conflicts still existed. Disagreements still surfaced. But everyone who had known Naruto found themselves saying the same thing again and again. What would he have done? And in that question, Naruto lived a little longer. Sasuke, though, could not let go so simply. Every night, he walked through the village Naruto had loved, the streets where Naruto laughed, the training grounds he destroyed as a child, the ramen stand where he celebrated small victories. Sasuke found himself standing in front of the Hokage's office more than once, not knowing why he had walked there or what he intended to do. One night, Sakura approached him. She did not ask questions. She stood beside him and waited. Sasuke finally spoke, not as a shinobi, not as a survivor, but as a man who had lost the one person who never gave up on him. He believed I could carry something, but I don't know if I can. Sakura's answer was simple. You don't have to carry it alone. None of us do. Sasuke understood the meaning. Naruto's legacy wasn't a burden meant for one person. It was a flame meant to be shared, protected, and passed on. For the first time since Naruto's death, Sasuke felt something close to purpose, not to atone, not to fulfill a destiny, but to ensure that Naruto's dream did not fade. And slowly, the world began to change again. Shinobi villages that once stood divided found themselves working together more naturally. Naruto's ideals, which once seemed overly optimistic, now felt like a responsibility. Even the next generation grew up with stories not of Naruto the Jinchuriki, or Naruto the Hokage, but Naruto the Bridge, someone who connected people simply by existing. Boruto eventually stood on the same cliff where Naruto once dreamed of becoming Hokage. He realized something his father had known all along. The title was not about power or recognition. It was a promise to protect everyone, even at the cost of one's life. Kawaki stood beside him and said something unexpected. He didn't die because he was strong. He died because he cared too much. Boruto shook his head softly. No, he died because he believed we'd take care of the world after him. That single belief was what kept the world moving. Naruto's death had left a wound, but it also planted a seed. A seed of unity, of understanding, of responsibility. And though he no longer walked among them, his influence shaped every decision, every alliance, every new shinobi who stepped into the world. Naruto had died instead of Kurama. But in doing so, he became something even greater than a legend. He became the reason the world stayed peaceful. And as long as people remembered the promise he lived by, to never abandon a friend, to never stop believing, and to always move forward, Naruto would never truly be gone.